Hey everyone, before we get started on a very exciting episode, please know that we are brought to you today by AudiofileUSA.com. With over 42,000 of the cleanest used records in stock, dig and find the deals at AudiofileUSA.com. We're also brought to you by Groove Washer, the best record cleaner that protects and prolongs your vinyl. Ask your record retailer for the Groove Washer by name and accept no substitutes. And with that, on with the show. Well, hey everyone, it's Nate. Welcome to episode 306 of The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for record collectors and music nerds. And today we have on the show Mr. Robby Krieger, guitarist, songwriter for The Doors. And today we talk all about his time with the band, the mythology of Jim Morrison. There's some Janis Joplin stories in there as well. A very amazing time. We discussed the live material of the band, the bootlegs, the rare recordings in private hands. We discussed the rare and desirable mono mix of the debut album, the artwork of their catalog, and of course, Robby's new book, Set the Night on Fire, out now everywhere books are sold. And I gotta tell you, I've read this book. It's a phenomenal read, extraordinarily well written, very captivating. It's one of those books you seek time in your day to sneak away and read it a bit. So if you like music bios and you want a ton of great stories about one of the greatest American rock groups in history, check out Robby Krieger's Set the Night on Fire, available on Kindle, physical book, and it's all out today. And hey, if you're just discovering the Vinyl Guide podcast, there's a ton of previous episodes you can enjoy anytime, including episode 297 with Tom Scholes of Boston, episode 293 with Billy Gibbons of ZZ Top, episode 300 with Peter Frampton, episode 249 with Mike Campbell of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, episode 119 with Ian Anderson of Jethro Tull, episode 115 with John McDermott, archivist of Jimi Hendrix, and heaps more. Subscribe on your podcast app. Enjoy all those episodes and hundreds of others anytime. And that's it. The upfronts are done. Let's get into our conversation with Robby Krieger of The Doors and author of the new book, Set the Night on Fire.
Sorry about that. Have fun. Okay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. How are you, Robby?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah. I got to tell you, Robby, the new book, Set the Night on Fire, it's out, when is it? October 12th?
Well, yeah.
I get a lot of books, and I read the books before the guests come on, and quite often I have to skim them because, time is, sometimes I only have a few days. Your book was one that I absolutely savored. It is so well written, and I really kept finding ways to make time in my day to get back to the book. I think it is one of the best rock autobiographies that I've read in a long, long time. So well done to you.
Wow, that's cool.
And I know it feels like a very true story. Like I know over the years, other books and interviews, and I think Ray had quite a big hand in this, really kind of embellishing stories, spinning myths. This seems to be the book that tells the real story.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping for. Like you say, there's. Ray got his hand in a lot of these other books. Even No One Here Gets Out Alive. Ray was in on that. Doesn't say so, but and of course the Oliver Stone thing was way out of control. Even though Ray had nothing to do with that.
I know that those sort of things, that sort of mythology, gets the band out in front of more people, and of course has all sorts of other advantages to that. But did it confuse or even irk you sometimes that there were so many mistruths about the band out there?
Yes. Yeah, I think so. I don't think they were necessary. We were, it was a crazy enough ride in the long run that, why do you have to spice it up with BS,
From what I understand, your time in The Doors with Jim was, I want to say 5 years, maybe a little more, a little less.
5 or 6.
Yeah. But those 5 years have had such a profound impact on your life. Early in life, it almost like it casts a shadow for everything that comes after it.
Yeah.
Understanding there's so many benefits that have come as a result of that, and setting those aside, was it difficult to have a life that was so defined by those 5 years?
Well, yeah, like I always say, it was a good problem to have,
Mm-hmm.
But for years I fought against doing the Doors stuff. I was doing jazz. I was trying to do, all different kind of projects. And the minute you get on stage, they just want to hear the Doors, And so for 20 or 30 years there, I didn't play a Doors song, I refused. And but then little by little I started seeing some of these Doors tribute bands,
Mm-hmm.
There was one called Wild Child. They were really good. This guy Dave Brock plays Jim. And so I would go and sit in with them once in a while. And it would be, wow, it was crazier than the old days, It was amazing, So little by little, I sort of got more into doing Doors stuff. And then finally, Ray and I got back together, in 2001, I think it was. And we did Doors concerts again, even though it was the Doors of the 21st century or something like that.
It took quite a bit of time to go from 1972, when the Doors were wrapped up, to the early 2000s, when it sounded like you were ready to re-embrace the Doors. Were there many overtures during that time for reunions or gatherings or get-togethers of the remaining members of the band?
Yeah, there was a few here and there. When the movie came out, of course, Ray didn't want to have anything to do with that. But John and I worked on the movie, so that was kind of fun. And then we had the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame thing in '91, which was pretty cool. Eddie Vedder sang with us,
Mm-hmm.
and little things like that, but never a full blown, okay, let's find another singer and do the Doors stuff until we did this show. It's called I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, it was a show where we had like 7 or 8 different guys that came. It was on TV show, and it had 7 or 8 guys that each one would do a different Doors song with John and Ray and I, and that was pretty cool. It was, and Ray and I really enjoyed it. I don't know why John didn't. I think that was right around the time that Ray's book came out, and he kind of put John down in the book, and it was, it's like tit for tat. John put Ray down a little in his book, and then Ray really put John down in his book. So, storytellers, big ones. We had Ian Astbury was one of the guys, and the guy from Train, Pat Monahan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just saw him the other night. In fact, we played a golf tournament together, George Lopez golf tournament. And then, so anyway, that was pretty cool, And like I said, Ray and I got us thinking about starting to do the Doors again. And then when we did, it was Ian Astbury that ended up singing with us.
So back in the early days, and again, in your book, this is something I learned I didn't know beforehand, the Doors had an original deal on Columbia. Were you part of the Doors at that point with that Columbia deal?
No, I wasn't. In fact, that's one reason why I was so interested in maybe joining the band. Wow, these guys got a deal on Columbia. That's amazing, Mm-hmm. So it turned out it was, at that time, Columbia just signed a bunch of groups every year, and they would just throw them up on the wall, see who stuck, So at one point, I talk about it in the book, Jim decided to take too much acid, as he sometimes did, and he went to the meeting. Went to the meeting at that Columbia with all the big heavyweights, and he comes out of the meeting and goes, "Man, that was great. We got it, man. We're in like Flynn, next day we were dropped.
With that news, and understanding that it is most certainly due to Jim's antics during that meeting with the Columbia execs, was the band frustrated? Were they angry with Jim? What was the reaction of everyone else?
Well, I mean, obviously we were, a little disappointed, but I mean, really, we knew how good we were, whether it was Columbia or somebody else. And, at that point, we hadn't even played at the Whiskey or anything. We were virtually unknown. And just to have that interest from Columbia at that point was pretty cool. The guy that signed us there was Billy James. He was the guy that brought Bob Dylan to Columbia. He was a pretty cool cat, and he really loved Jim and Ray. And he was, he's the one that was trying to get us going on Columbia. And unfortunately, he decided to bring Jim to that meeting.
And then even he couldn't save it.
Right.
At what point did the band realize that Jim's antics were a real asset?
A real asset? That's a good question. I think, to tell you the truth, we could have done without the antics. Mm-hmm. I mean, it gives people something to talk about, I suppose, and it brings interest to the band. But I would much rather have had Jim just been a normal guy that was really a great writer and singer, and I think we would have been just. Mm-hmm. It would have been the same result,
And perhaps he would have still been here with us.
Exactly.
Reading the book, and I understand in these sort of books, there's a limited number of pages, and you kind of got to get to the things that are of strongest interest. And a lot of the tales of Jim, especially when he's drinking, he seems... again, very exhausting to be around. You could never let your guard down around Jim. Was it difficult to be in that tight group with him, and anything he did reflected on the others in the band?
Well, it was, it wasn't easy. When I first joined the band, he was doing acid. That was his thing. He wasn't drinking. And, that was great. I mean, he still did some weird stuff, but nothing like the drinking.
He wasn't mean. The drinking seemed to make him mean.
Yeah, exactly. Ray always had a name for when Jim got too drunk. It was called Jimbo. Jimbo's here. Okay. That was the point at which his he flipped into that other personality. Okay. And when he took acid, that never really happened. At least not like that. It was he became very mischievous. When he was on acid, he would if a bunch of people were on acid, he would go over and turn the lights off and on real fast. To make it look like a strobe light to try to freak people out. But when he was drunk, he would just do horrible stuff like. My wife, Lynn, used to go out with him before I knew her. And she told me this one time they went over to this guy's house, and this film producer guy, real nice guy. And Jim just got too drunk. And at one point he just grabbed Lynn's feet, and he lived right on the beach. And he started dangling her over the edge of that patio, right over the ocean. And, she was just freaked out. And then after she finally got back up on the patio, he goes in and just destroys the place, man, throws the guy's books everywhere and just, total asshole, for no reason other than he got drunk.
Did he remember those episodes after? I know you said he would apologize, but would he black out and remember that, or did he have to be reminded?
I think he did black out a lot of the times, because he wouldn't remember half of the stuff he did.
What do you know about the incident at the scene in New York where apparently he, Jimi Hendrix, and Janis Joplin were in the same room and a fight occurred?
Well, that was somewhere else, but when at the scene, Jim came up on stage while Jimmy was playing, and he loved it. He loved the music so much he had to be a part of it, right? And so he crawled up on stage. He was so drunk he couldn't hardly get up. So Jimmy gave him a microphone. He said, "Here, sing in the mic, man, sing in the mic." And he was just so fucked up he couldn't do it. It was like, I wasn't there, so I just heard about it. But it was not a good scene. And he had a couple of fights with Janis because they were both pretty crazy when they would get drunk, too drunk. And I remember one time we were at this party, and here comes Janis in this driving up in a car, and Jim goes over there and starts pulling her hair to get her out of the car. He thought he was helping her, I guess. And then she let him have it, man. She started smacking him. I wish I had a video of that.
I understand when he heard that Janis had passed and Jimmy had passed, he told others that he would be number 3.
Yeah, he did say that.
Mm-hmm.
He said that. And, we thought he was kidding, but I think in his mind he was serious.
Did he have any other reaction other than making it about himself? Did he ponder it? Did it shock him when they passed? We never really talked about it that much. I mean, it definitely affected him, because I think he expected maybe that he would be the one to do that before anybody else, So I don't know. I don't know why he was so obsessed with death and to find out what happens when you die. He just couldn't wait. It's the ultimate question. So I understand, correct me if I'm wrong here, with LA Woman, that was the final album contractually the band needed to deliver to Elektra. And at the time, the band was a bit sore from the label's creation of the 13 compilation, and we're thinking about taking the band elsewhere. Is that largely true in its structure?
No.
Okay.
I think we always loved Elektra records. Maybe our lawyer might have said something like that to them to try to scare them, but no, I don't think we ever would have left Elektra, because they were the ones that really understood the band. None of the other labels really got it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Jack Holzman he was like a really smart guy, and when he heard us do Whiskey Bar, he couldn't believe it. He said, "Wow, a rock and roll band doing a Lottie Lenya song. This is so cool." And nobody knew anything about that, like something like that at that time, except he had signed some of the coolest people ever, Sabikis and flamenco stuff, Judy Collins, all kinds of great folk music. This was all the stuff I was listening to when I was in high school. Mm-hmm. A lot of it produced by Paul Rothchild.
Okay, so it was likely a posturing.
Yeah, I'd probably from our lawyers.
Okay, they always ruin everything.
Yeah.
Do you know if Jim heard the final LA Woman album?
Gosh, I would doubt it. I mean, he heard some of the mixes, of course, but he left before we finished mixing the album. So, of course, he heard all the songs before that. But no, I don't think he ever. Nowadays we would have just emailed it to him over in Paris, but they didn't have that luxury back then.
Were you guys writing any letters or communicating with him during his last months in Paris?
Not really. I mean, he would call the office sometimes, and just to see what was happening. And John was there one day when he called and talked to him, and he, he was thinking about coming back and starting up again.
Was there a timeline set up? I think
No,
he passed in July, I think, yeah?
Yeah, July 3rd. So I'm trying to remember when he left. But he was there for a while. And but I could tell he would definitely have come back and we would have started up again.
Looking at the calendar and the timeline for what was happening around then, the recording of what became Other Voices started in June. Jim dies in early July, and then the recording of Other Voices wraps up around August. In those 3 months, in that summer, you started a project which I guess everyone assumed that Jim would be part of. And then obviously the dudes disrupted that and had to wrap it up somehow. Is that how you remember it, that condensed into that summer?
We'll be back after these messages.
Hey there, I gotta tell you about the Groove Washer. Not because I have to, but because I want to. The Groove Washer is the best record cleaner you can get. And if you have a vinyl collection, you need to keep it clean. Dirt and dust lead to groove wear, which affects the sound and value of your record collection. Use the Groove Washer to clean before each play, and your ears and future pocketbook will thank you. Ask for the Groove Washer by name at your local record store, or go direct to groovewasher.com and use promo code VinylGuide10 at checkout. Groove Washer is a great holiday gift. Why not send one to a friend? groovewasher.com, discount code VinylGuide10. Do it now. And all record nerds want to hear about AudiofileUSA.com, the family-owned and operated online record shop that's been in business over 30 trustworthy years. AudiofileUSA.com only sells excellent and near-mint vinyl records, only in tip-top quality for your turntable. And with over 42,000 titles, you're sure to find a bunch on your want list at AudiofileUSA.com. Audiophile vinyl is not just for the elite. Everyone can enjoy the gold standard of sound at AudiofileUSA.com. Search by title, genre, label, dig and find the deals at AudiofileUSA.com, home of the Holy Grails.
Now we return to the program already in progress.
No limits.
Looking at the calendar and the timeline for what was happening around then, the recording of what became Other Voices started in June. Jim dies in early July, and then the recording of Other Voices wraps up around August. In those 3 months, in that summer, you started a project which I guess everyone assumed that Jim would be part of. And then obviously the dudes disrupted that and had to wrap it up somehow. Is that how you remember it, that condensed into that summer?
Yeah, pretty much. We didn't know what else to do. We'd worked really hard on these songs while he was gone, and we didn't just want to throw them away. And looking back, we probably should have waited longer to put it out. After he had passed in July, but we believed in the stuff. And, Elektra, they wanted to sign us for another 3 albums,
As a trio?
Yeah. They did sign us.
Mm-hmm.
We just didn't want to sit around doing nothing.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, you had the music set in an alternative universe where Jim would have returned from Paris. He would have heard the music, written poetry, written the words to it, and that would have been the next Doors album. Was that the typical working style that the band was starting to take up?
Well, not really. I mean, LA Woman, a lot of it was done totally together, just kind of jamming together. I mean, before that, it was more, I would have a song, Jim would have a song, he would have some poetry, I would do the lyrics, But LA Woman was done more as kind of we did it in our little rehearsal studio, so there's no time constraints. And it was really more of a group effort than any of the albums before it. And I think that's how it would have gone had Jim come back.
Yeah. After Jim passed, were there names of singers that were considered for the role? Were there discussions with the record label about maybe getting someone else in there on a more permanent basis?
Well, for the first album or two, we couldn't replace Jim Morrison, So we didn't even think about that. We just said, well, me, Ray, and I'll sing, and I just, we're not great singers, but it would just be too weird to stick somebody else in there and expect them to live up to Jim Morrison. We talked about Iggy Pop, but he was doing his own thing. We never really even had a meeting or anything about that. And we talked about Paul McCartney. It'd be perfect, man. He plays bass, he sings, But I'm sure he had better things to do at the time.
That would be a very interesting scenario to put in the what if machine.
Yeah.
Did Jim listen to a lot of records? Did he have a record collection, if you recall?
Not really. No. He listened to radio and stuff. Ray was the one with the record collection. He had a great record collection. That's where we got the idea to do Whiskey Bar and stuff like that. Jim, he did listen to a lot of stuff, old blues and all that, but it was more of a Ray's collection.
There was the final show in New Orleans with Jim, and there's a rumor that apparently a tape of that exists, some reel-to-reel somewhere, but it's never surfaced yet. Do you happen to know if that exists or not?
Yeah, it does. It does. The sound is pretty bad on it, We are talking to the guy, and he wants a ridiculous amount of money for it, and we just. So far, it hasn't been a reality. It just doesn't sound good enough to put out as a record. Let them put it out on the internet so people can hear it.
Right.
It's pretty bad.
Okay, is it complete? Is it the whole show end to end?
That I'm not sure about it. I don't think so. I think it's maybe 30 minutes or something like that.
From what I hear, it wasn't a particularly great show. Jimbo was singing for you at that point, from what it sounds like.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. It just wasn't a show that we were proud of,
Is there a show from the original four of you that you recall being the one you felt the best about that maybe we don't have a recording of?
Yeah, the shows we did at the Fillmore West, San Francisco, were really good, really great shows. And people keep saying, well, they recorded everything there, Well, I've never heard it, never been able to find it. I wish we could. And there was a guy that used to record stuff at the Whiskey, but never been able to find that either. One good show that is really good, that's actually a video, is of the Roundhouse gig in London. That was the first time we went to London, and I think the Airplane played and the Dead, maybe. We really played good that night, and it's on video. You could probably find that on the internet. There's also a really musically great show that we did at the Isle of Wight. I think that's out. You can get that. And, it was right around the time when Jim was up for, the Miami trial and all that shit. So he wasn't especially, photogenic or anything that day, but he sang really great. That one's worth checking out.
Aside from this New Orleans recording, are you aware of any other recordings, either audio or video, that are still just in the hands of private collectors?
No, not really. We hear things now and then, but so far nothing's panned out. These doors nerds that they keep in touch, with each other, and they know everything, man. These guys know when a pin drops,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure if something was there, they would be talking about it.
I've spoken to some folks who look after archives of bands, like McDermott with the Jimi Hendrix archive, Greg Brooks with the Queen archive, and how they're starting to pull together, or how they have been really over the last few decades, pulling together all the tapes and imagery and anything that has to do with the band during their time. Is there a similar effort, a similar archive for the Doors?
Yes, I mean we have we got a place where we keep all the stuff, and a guy named Dave Dukowski is the guy in charge of that, and he, and also Bruce Botnick, who engineered everything for the Doors. He's got some stuff. And he's very secretive about it. I think in his mind, some of the stuff just is not suitable to be out there. And, he's, whereas, a lot of fans would love just to hear anything that went on tape. Mm-hmm. And there is a lot of stuff coming out on this new box set for LA Woman's 50th anniversary. It's coming out, I think, next month. Mm-hmm. There's quite a bit of outtakes and cool stuff that you can hear us talking in the control room and stuff. So that'd be worth checking out.
Oh, phenomenal. Do you know if there's any missing tapes, anything that has eluded the Doors detectives for the last half century?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, but I mean, the worst thing is the first album, or maybe it was the second, the record company erased the masters and used the tape to record on another band. Back then, tape was expensive, and they didn't know it was going to be around for 50 years.
Dear Lord, the 4-track tape, yeah. The master. Oh,
4-track. There's no. We have a copy of it, luckily, but be good to have the real thing.
Well, the good news is the record company saved about $60.
You're right.
Oh, dear Lord. Are you aware of the original mono mix of that debut album? There's a particular vinyl pressing, and I'm going to get super nerdy, so it's okay if you don't follow me down this rabbit hole, but there's a mono pressing from the Monarch pressing plant in Los Angeles, and apparently in the track The End, you can hear Jim cursing extraordinarily clear, much more so than other mixes, other pressings ever since.
Well, on the last remix of that, or remastering, Bruce definitely brought up all that stuff a lot louder than it was. But mono is hardly anybody bought mono back in those days because everything was going to stereo. But in reality, the mono mix is the best because it really has everything and in the volume that it should be,
mm-hmm.
Without fooling around with, let's put this over here and that over there. And that's what Bruce always says. Oh, mono is always the best. But that particular mono one, I don't know why they would have made a separate pressing or a separate mono mix. As far as I remember, there was one mono and one stereo.
Yeah, maybe I got to take that up with Botnick, because apparently in record collecting circles, which we talk to quite a bit here, that record specifically is a really nice copy can go for, over $500.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's just, you're saying that's just the mono mix that originally came out?
Apparently so. I know there's a few other mono pressings out there, but everyone wants the Monarch pressing, which could be because it's also from Los Angeles, Doors Los Angeles. Maybe there's that association. But yeah, I've been following this story for quite some time and haven't quite got all the pieces together yet.
So there was a pressing plant in New York as well, right?
Yeah, there's a few, largely, I think in Pennsylvania, there's some in the Midwest, but yeah, the main one that was used by Elektra, and Atlantic and a few others was Monarch.
Yeah, that rings a bell.
Mm-hmm.
I'm no expert.
Okay. Do you have a record collection? Do you still have a lot of stuff from back in the day?
Yeah, I still have all my old vinyl, but I've been meaning to get a new turntable and all that, and so far I haven't done it. But I got my speakers ready to go. Clip shorts.
Oh.
Yeah, those are great.
You need a turntable though.
Yeah.
If you need a few bucks, I'll loan you some money there, Robby. It's Do you still have things like the test pressings and some of the artifacts from when you were originally recording the records?
Not really. No, I mean, Bruce has all that stuff. I was never really one of those type of nerds.
Yeah, it's a big commitment. You're best to have avoided it. Do you still have some things of Jim's? Some things that were left behind that part of your life?
Sure, I got nothing from him. I've got a. You ever seen that leather satchel he had? Remember that picture where he had the brown leather satchel and he had like a cowboy hat on? I got that satchel. That's about it.
Okay. Yeah. Any dope in that satchel?
Sure, there was at one time.
So with this book, again, I can't say enough good things about it. It is just a wonderful book. The cover also even looks like the LA Woman cover, that kind of magenta, yellow mylar sort of thing.
You must have the English version.
In Australia, I think that must be what we have here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I like that one better than the United States.
Were you guys involved much in the album artworks?
Well, not really. They had a great guy there, Bill Harvey, who did all the album covers for Elektra. And, I mean, if we didn't like something, we could say, hey, what about this or that? But usually they were all his ideas. Although on LA Woman, that was Dorothy's idea, Ray's wife. She picked those colors out. And if you have an original LA Woman album cover, it has the plastic insert. Where we're looking, it looks like we're looking through a window kind of.
Yep.
And it's a plastic insert, which is kind of cheap when you think about it, but it's a lot cooler than the one they came out at. But the second batch was just a photo of that. There was no actual insert, so those are pretty rare.
Yeah, those are the ones that the collectors want.
Yeah, and there's the Henry Dilt's photo of Morrison Hotel. That's a pretty good one too.
It's interesting that when it comes to the Doors album covers, all of them have pictures of the band except Strange Days.
Right.
Any particular reason or logic for that, or just random circumstance?
That was actually Jim's idea, because if you remember, the first album had this giant picture of Jim, and then the three little guys,
Mm-hmm.
around him, and he was kind of embarrassed by that. He thought. So of course he overdid it on the next one. He says, "All right, I don't want anybody of no pictures of us on the front." But they did have one little poster, if you see it. Remember, it's like a poster on the street of us, and that alleyway where they took the picture with all the clowns and stuff. That's right where Ravi Shankar lived. Right in front of his house.
So was that photo shoot especially set up just for the album cover, or was it an already pre-existing piece of art that was used for the album cover?
No, that was set up for the album cover.
Okay. And from that point forward, all the other Doors releases, at least the studio albums, there were the four of you, all the same size, very much a democracy.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
That's how I would have wanted it.
Was there ever a near breakup of the band?
Oh gosh, not really. No, I mean the closest we came was the one, and I tell about it in the book. Is I don't even remember what Jim had done a couple of nights before to piss us off, but he did some fuck up, and John says, we had a gig up in Seattle next day, and he goes, "You know what? I'm not coming. I'm sick. I can't do it." And we knew he wasn't sick. And so we said, "Oh, come on, John." "No, I've had it, man. I can't do this anymore, blah, blah, blah." So there was this band, the Daily Flash, and they played with us sometimes. And so we got their drummer. Said, "Hey, John Keelior was his name. Hey, John, how about doing this gig with us? John's sick, So, okay. Because he'd heard our stuff, quite often. And he did it. And then, of course, the next day, John was back and, I'm better now. I'm better, But at the same time, we realized that, it's just not the same without John,
Yeah.
I mean, it was fine. The audience didn't boo or anything, but it was, John was really a big part of the sound.
Mm-hmm. I recently saw a video of you playing Chunga's Revenge with a few of the Zappa alumni. And I know you've been playing with Arthur Barrow for many years. He's been on the show. Did you have many experiences with Frank Zappa?
We lived near each other in Laurel Canyon, and we would jam every once in a while. He had a drum set over there and stuff, and hung out with him here and there, but never really played in his band or anything like that. Because
at one point his name was floated as a potential producer of the Doors.
Right. Yeah. He really did want to produce us, and as did Lou Adler and a couple other guys. But, in those early days, Zappa to me was, I didn't think of him as being so musical and stuff. It was more of a freak show type thing, So I thought he might try to do that to us, So, and when Paul Rothschild's name came up, and we said, "Oh, wow," because he was like my favorite producer for years before that. When I was in high school, I listened to all these records that he'd produced, Paul Butterfield Band, So that kind of closed that deal.
You had your own circus going on. You didn't need Frank Zappa to add to it.
Right.
All right, Robby, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all those tales of the day. I want to remind everyone that Robby's new book, Set the Night on Fire, is available now. You can buy it wherever you get your books. There's a Kindle version. I always encourage people to try to buy it from an independent record shop or bookshop. I want to make sure we keep those shops supported, especially with what's happened in the last year. This book, Set the Night on Fire, I feel it is a definitive story of the Doors, told by the guy who was there, and it really sets some truth and balance to the mythology of this band in a very respectful way and a very entertaining and wonderful way. Set the Night on Fire by Robby Krieger. And again, Robby, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey, man, I really appreciate your, you're being, most guys I know, they just skim it probably, and they ask you the normal questions, but I could tell you really read it and dug it, so that means a lot.
Yeah, and by the way, a lot of my questions are just things. I'm not ruining the stories in the book with the questions. I tried to go a bit deeper, so people who read the book will be getting a whole new set of facts and understanding around it. Robby, thanks again for everything. I wish you the best of luck with the book and the best of health, and we'll hope to talk to you again.
All right, man. It's a good show.
There we go, Mr. Robby Krieger of The Doors. Thank you so much for coming by the Vinyl Guide, Robby. And just so everyone knows, up at patreon.com/Vinyl Guide, all these episodes are available without any ads. It's totally ad-free up there. So if you enjoy the show and already know everything about Groove Washer and AudiofileUSA.com, feel free to go to patreon.com/Vinyl Guide. You help support what we do here. You get all the episodes ad-free. You get extras. You get extended interviews. You get early access to episodes and more. Patreon.com/Vinyl Guide. Please consider it, and thanks in advance for your support. And that's it for this episode of the Vinyl Guide. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please share these episodes on your social media, tweet them out on Twitter, share them on Facebook. Please leave us positive reviews in iTunes and other platforms. Give us 5 out of 5 or 10 out of 10. Say something nice. That is always appreciated. And we'll be back shortly with a brand new episode. So until we talk next time, get out there and buy some records, people. Cheers.
That's it for this episode of The Vinyl Guide. Send your thoughts to Nate at thevinylguide.com or follow or tag us on Instagram at Vinyl Guide. Until next time, keep spinning.